Kiriaki, who will present the summary. Thank you. Kiriaki, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. In light of the several comments and discussions made, I would like to summarize the key points of your suggestions. I have tried to regroup them with the help of Durham, and I think we can safely present to you the following list. The first type of issues that were raised were practical structure issues. There was a question of whether we build a new structure versus utilizing the existing structures within this organization. There was questions as to whether we want a general meeting or separate meetings, and we opted for general meetings. Another recurring point was the question of root causes and how to introduce references to political and socioeconomic root causes. That, I think, we have to seriously consider. Following which, there were several areas of intervention in terms of practical suggestions, and those included for the exploration of how we can utilize the role of religious leaders, how we can promote our 6 action plans through education, and the third one was capacity building and training, which to some extent is connected to education. As far as interested stakeholders are concerned, we heard suggestions calling us to look at teachers and leading pedagogical personnel, suggestions that asked us to look at national leadership, and even suggestions that considered the strategic use of people, of individuals, of popularity to further our aims. A recurring point was to include youth and youth workers. That came from several ones of you. And another very important and recurring point was connected to how we map the territory. And by this, I mean, how do we anchor ourselves to existing UN legal and policy statements, as well as the work of other NGOs. In that way, we will be able, of course, to mitigate fragmentation of ideas and resources among all of us involved in this context. What was also very relevant and interesting was how do we engage with principles. I think there were at least 2 speakers that came forward with useful suggestions for us to include principles that will guide our work, such as inclusivity, universality, indivisibility, and the call for a glocal approach, so global and local at the same time. As far as hate speech is concerned, I think it's clear that the connection with media is imminent, for example, through training. A very interesting suggestion was to combine religious scholars, to team religious scholars with media personnel and journalists, for example, to provide that sort of training and awareness raising. There was another suggestion as far as social media was concerned to create focus groups, so that's also a form of mapping for us to understand better the challenges. Furthermore, we heard about the role of families as fora for education, so that was another suggestion. What I found very, very interesting, and I'm sure others will as well, is the addressing fear item. That, of course, connects to the roots of the phenomena, and that, of course, I think is a more longer-term perspective, an issue that we need to look out for. And then I think that completes my list in terms of the main key points. In terms of logistic details, I have been instructed to let you know that those of you who wish to engage further in this dialogue should send their suggestions by email to Mercedes's email, who I believe most of you, if not all of you, already have exchanged emails with, by the 10th of May. So it is essential that we all communicate those to Mercedes. Furthermore, for those that provided papers, if they wish to for us to consider further their contributions through those papers, again, it was suggested that you send your papers to Mercedes, and those would be distributed to the drafting committee in case you think, of course, that these contain relevant ideas.
That's all.
So I hope this is clear. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, please, Egypt.
Thank you very much. Let me first congratulate the drafting group for their great job. They have reflected, they had a very difficult job in reflecting all the comments and proposals that have been raised in the room. But my delegation is totally satisfied with just have been read out. But actually, I believe that there's something maybe missing. Maybe I did not catch up, or maybe there is, I didn't hear it from you. It's the synergy, the issue of the synergy. So you talked about all the points, the guiding principles, everything, but only the synergy is very important because even for the credibility of the initiative of the Dialogue 5, it should not be seen as the action plan is developed in vacuum. It should be seen as developed in relation with other initiatives in the United Nations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on the short summary of the previous panel? No. So now, just to reiterate once more, to clarify, we will compile all your inputs together, and also we review your contribution. We have summaries that have been taken by the rapporteurs of each panel. So we'll also study, analyze those contributions, including also through the written contribution of those who send it to us. And then we will compile all the inputs together, and then we will send it to you for the final input. Okay, sorry. Please, Mohammed.
Is it working? Yeah. So thank you, Simona. I just want to also just acknowledge and appreciate these practical actions, but I want to add one point I think that is very critical, and that is it is very important to promote and build on best practices. We emphasized that yesterday in our panel, but I think it is critical, for instance, for example, for the refugees, and this is also building on how to address the root causes. Education was mentioned, but we have some examples. For instance, for the first time just last month in Uganda, the refugees in Uganda, Finchurch 8 was able to actually grant a Finnish degree to those refugees who are in Uganda in the refugees camps. So what that means is opening a lot of doors for the refugees. They can use this degree in Europe and to continue their education. So this is basically is going to help. This is kind of best practices. Similarly, as we mentioned yesterday, building on a document that promoting the protection of religious minorities, like the Marrakesh declarations and other declaration, the plan of actions. And so all of these documents, we need to find a way to promote them and build on them as well as the best practices that basically supporting the objective here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no comments anymore, I will then give the floor to Mr. DIENG and Liviu and Mr. Brito for the final session, for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Excellencies, Eminences, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Practically, what we start some years ago, we are in the journey. We didn't finish. In this journey, practically, we like to continue together to find the best solution. How can we contribute for a better world? In this situation, we cannot forget practically what have been said by the General Secretary of the United Nations. I would like to read something. Today, I quote, "World order is increasingly chaotic. Power relations are less clear. Universal values are being eroded. Democratic principles are under siege, and the rule of law is being undermined. The threat to terror looms, fed by the root causes of the radicalization and violent extremism. Migrants and refugees continue to face discrimination and in the context of clearly insufficient international cooperation. Around the world, we see how religion is being twisted, cynically manipulated to justify incitement to violence and discrimination. And we also see an alarming rise in online and offline hate speech, messages that spread hostility and hatred and encourages population to commit violence against individuals or communities, often based on identity. Hate speech sows the seeds of suspicion, mistrust, and intolerance. Those who see their neighbors as dangerous may cause a threat where there was none. Our future rests on solidarity. We must uphold dignity for one and for all. Let us work together to prevent and end atrocity crimes in all affronts to human rights and human dignity. I'm very happy because Secretary General of the United Nations asked Mr. Adama DIENG, His Excellency, to lead this group against practically hate speech, countering hate speech. And this summit, we tried in this summit practically to have one step more, to go one step more in this situation. But at the same time, we are in the beginning. Always we are in the beginning. I really appreciate the cooperation, excellent cooperation which you had with the Office of Genocide Prevention, Responsibility to Protect, especially with His Excellency Mr. Adama DIENG. We miss Simona CRUCIANI and all the team which work with us. And practically I can say that for me, I feel with this organization, practically United Nations, and I'm feeling with you, Muslim, Jews, Christians, my brother and sister in humanity. Together, we can contribute for a better world. We have a duty, no one behind. We have a duty to continue this process and practically expressing by this Dialogue 5 framework which we prepared that together we have a role in this world. I appreciate a lot all your participation, excellencies, ambassadors, diplomats, politicians, religious leaders, scholars, civil society, media, which have been together. But we didn't finish our work. Everyone has a duty. Everyone can do the best. And surely together we can contribute for our earth, for our neighbor, helping them, and practically looking not for only for our present, for the future of our children, young generations, the women's. We need to have this inclusivity for all people. Young people have to be involved in these actions. And I'm feeling all together we can do our environment the best place this time, because we have been created in the same image of our God. For this reason, we have to join our hands to work together for next steps. And I appreciate a lot, Your Excellency, all what you did, what you are doing for all the earth, for our planet, through this kind of global summit, which you organized together for many years. We started that. And I thank you so much for your contribution, for your office are doing. Your team is an excellent team. And starting with my president, Mr. Mario BRITO, we got a lot of energy working together with United Nations, because together we understood we can do the best for our environment, for our people, for everyone. I thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Well,
okay, I can. I just want to really thank all the participants. Thank the United Nations Office Against Genocide, the good cooperation that we have had with the Association, International Association for the Defense of Liberty, Religious Liberty. I believe that together, all of us, men and women of goodwill, we can build a better future. It's something that has to continue, as it has been said. It's all about human dignity and liberty. Both things cannot be separated. The dignity of humankind is in his freedom that we have to promote and defend. This is all about that. I'm really happy for the deep discussions, for the great contributions that we have received along these summits. And I hope that they will continue to ferment and to grow in our minds, that we may continue bringing concrete proposals, as we are trying to do, applicable, that may help the whole humanity, if I say the whole world. I wish we can continue this dialogue in a global way, but in a personal way, or I'll say the many people we met together discussing, that we may be a group that will continue. I hope that this is the beginning of a long and very productive journey. My best wishes to all of you, and thank you for coming and for your participation. Thank you, Excellency, His Excellency, Mr. Adama DIENG and Simona CRUCIANI, that have a very important role. I know how much you have worked and have suffered, but we have been suffering together. Nothing good comes to the world without suffering. Blessings to all.
Thank you very much, President BRITO. Thank you, Liviu, my good friend. Thank you to all of you. I should say that the expectation I had for the outcome of this meeting went beyond of really what I was looking for. And reading through the draft which has been prepared and for which you are all invited to provide by 10th of May, the latest, your inputs. I am confident that the sacrifices which have been really made by the Association for the Defense of Religious Liberty, and particularly his President and Secretary General, will definitely bear fruits. We are speaking about building bridges, fostering inclusivity, countering hate speech to enhance the protection of religious minorities, refugees, and migrants. I will not elaborate further because the words of the Secretary General quoted by Liviu are more than eloquent. The only thing I would simply say is that the size of the challenges we will all be facing should not be a reason for us to really, I would say, to be disheartened. This should rather embolden us in our common will to make this world a better place. I mean, there is no doubt that these are really very, very, I would say, difficult challenges. Because while we are gathering in this room, trying to promote further the principles which are those which make the AIDLR, which the AIDLR has tried since 1946, 1 year after the adoption of the UN Charter, to promote. We are unfortunately seeing today people who are rather trying to retreat from internationalism, who are trying to really attack and openly multilateralism, and in other words, affecting the principles and the values contained in the UN Charter And for this reason, I said our struggle will be certainly not an easy one. I'm not, I would say, an optimist, neither a pessimist, but I'm someone who is determined. And I do read from the work you have achieved these last 3 days that you share the same determination, meaning that you will definitely work together and work also together on the road to dignity. And I do believe that the objective we agreed here, starting from the mobilization of all the actors, the 5+, we are speaking about 5, and I cannot but really commend those who insisted on the importance of adding the youth and adding the business sector. Because at the end of the day, when we speak about the SDGs, unlike the MDGs, which were focusing on the social pillar, the SDGs have rather a holistic approach. And for the SDGs to be implemented, and to be implemented in all countries around the world, because the SDGs are not only for the South, but for all countries around the world, we need definitely each and everyone to be involved in that implementation process. And that is why the diplomats, the religious leaders, the youth, the women group, all of us have a role to play. And once again, I simply would like to thank you for your commitment, your dedication, and I do hope that we will, as my good friend President BRITO said, will continue together in this journey, this long journey for peace. But we have to admit that so far we have at least avoided to have a third world war, simply because we have been still continuing to promote the respect of the principle contained in the UN Charter, the principle of international law. But let's not allow anyone to really bring our world in a mess. We need, and we have the capability, the capacity to prevent change which will really make our children and the children of our children condemn us for not speaking out, for not standing for the respect of human dignity. Because at the end of the day, it's about human dignity. We need to make sure that no one is left behind. And it is a shame to see in very developed countries people who are left behind. We need to strengthen the network of solidarity, solidarity for development, solidarity for peace. And it is possible when we really bring back the key notion of human dignity in the center of our work. Have a blessed journey back to your home, and let's remain in touch. Bye. I made a small mistake which I should not have done, although at the opening I did thank them, but I think it is not a luxury to really renew my sincere thanks to the IIRF, LDS Charities, ADRA, and BYU Law for their generous contribution which made our meeting possible. And for all of them, I can say that you will be remembered as agents who have been contributing with your resources to bring this very, I would say, beautiful group of truly committed human beings who care about the future of this world. I thank you once more.